Today I am making a video while I'm playing Lord of the Rings Online. I play Elder Scrolls Online, Lord of the Rings Online, and Genshin Impact, and those have been the games that I've kind of just not been able to let go of because there's certain things about them that I really enjoy. Like, for example, in Elder Scrolls Online, the housing system is just about the best you'll find in any MMO. And the world design is just really beautiful, and I enjoy it. And something about just immersing myself in the world of Tamriel, it just feels like something I don't want to let go of it, you know? There's a vibe there. And I also enjoy just gathering mats and selling them on the guild traders there and kind of passively trying to make money in the game. It's sort of kind of fun. It's not intense like Albion Online or Eve Online, but it's kind of a little bit of that, you know, playing the economy sort of a vibe, which I do enjoy there. So Elder Scrolls Online, it's great, but you know what isn't great about Elder Scrolls Online? It's the combat. The combat is just so bad. And I know there's people that are going to say, oh my goodness, it's not bad at all. You just need to strip all your clothes off and then fight without any gear. Or they'll say, well, you can't talk about how the combat is too easy because it's not easy in Cyrodiil and it's not easy in multi-person dungeons, and there's world bosses, and yeah, I get that, but it's easy in the sense that if you are doing overworld content in a normal way, the level scaling makes everything feel just about the same. Like fighting a mud crab on the beach feels about the same as defeating the final boss in one of the zone story quests. And it's not that I want the game to be extremely difficult. That's not it. Like, to the contrary, I think there's a turnoff in games when I want to play the story. I just want to get through the content because I heard that the story was cool. And then I realized, well, I'm not high enough level. I can't do that content. And then I just think, well, you know, I don't even know if I want to play that game because I don't want to put in the enormous amount of time necessary to get good at it and to level up to where I can actually finish the content. So I'm not really opposed to level scaling. I think a difficulty modifier would be very attainable for the developers to add, and it would probably suit everyone very well if they would do that. I would be so excited if they would do a difficulty modifier where if you opt for a higher level of difficulty, you get better loot in return, and if you opt for the more easy mode, then you can do that too, and it would just appeal to everybody. But bottom line, I do not play ESO for the combat. It's just not really the thing. What I play ESO for is just chilling in a really beautiful designed world, exploring the landscapes and gathering things and doing a few quests here and there. That's what I play ESO for. I think it's a nice game, but it doesn't scratch that the itch for wanting to have, you know, different types of combat in games. And Lord of the Rings Online is a good example of a tab target game that just gets combat right, because you start off weak and you do what you can to level up as time goes on, and then as you progress you become more powerful and you're able to do more content. And what's nice about it is it just feels like what you're doing is meaningful, because, you know, like, let's just say that you're a weak player, and then there's another player playing content near you. It just feels meaningful because that more powerful player can make the content so much easier for you. You know, so even as PvE players, you wind up feeling like the things that other players are doing can potentially help your journey so much. Whereas in ESO, if you're just playing overworld content, questing and stuff, it doesn't really matter because everything is so totally soloable. There's no point in having someone there to help you. So what is the point of questing together if all of the content that you encounter is easier to do solo? So then there's the whole notion of, you know, how hard is the content, and how does it feel when you are fighting enemies? And in Lord of the Rings Online, it's not that the combat looks really good. It's not that you have a really amazing sense of impactfulness per se. It's just, it's a really clean, simple numbers game. It's kind of like how damage is calculated in a real-time strategy game like Age of Empires. You don't have this sense that there isn't a consequence for each action you take, and having that sense of understanding how the numbers stack up to deal damage makes it feel fun because you can understand it. And so it's calculated in a way that just makes sense. So instead of, I guess you are still just button mashing to a point potentially, but you have that idea that the way combat is calculated is fair and it makes sense, and there's a reward for progressing. And then if you're a person like me who just kind of likes to wander around an open world, the world is amazing in Lord of the Rings Online. It's non-instanced, it's enormous, and the higher you get level-wise, the more the low-level mobs won't attack you unless you attack them. So if you want just a chill exploring experience to hang out in Middle Earth, you just level up to a certain point, and then those low-level mobs will stop chasing you. And that's kind of cool if you want to have just sort of a peaceful playing experience, and you don't want to constantly be fighting trash mobs everywhere you go. In Lord of the Rings Online, it's possible to just ignore them, you know. And I think that's something I do enjoy a lot about the game. Then of course there is the issue of just enjoying the story of Lord of the Rings. I mean, who doesn't enjoy the story of Lord of the Rings? But the fact that there's a sense of moral clarity in Lord of the Rings, to where good and evil are not really ambiguous. It's very clear what good looks like, and you are a good guy. You're fighting for the good in the world, and that just feels kind of nice. Versus, like, for example, Elder Scrolls Online, I enjoy the world design, but the stories don't really do all that much for me, because if you think about it, you know, what even is the you know, who are the good guys in Tamriel? Well, maybe you want the Empire to win or something, but in Elder Scrolls Online there really kind of is no empire, just 3 feuding factions which don't really win or lose. They're just kind of there for the purpose of giving people different factions to align with, but there isn't really any sense that as you work through the story you're going to get to the end and you're going to have this amazing finale and you're going to find out how the story ends. If you want to know how the story ends, I guess the closest you would come in Elder Scrolls would be to go play Skyrim, because that's set 1,000 years in the future. But if anything, that just kind of contributes to the sense of futility, that nothing you do is going to change the outcome of the world you are playing in. So the questing in Elder Scrolls helps you to maybe have a sense of understanding of the context of characters in the world, the meaningfulness of the different places in the world. But it's kind of more like a history lesson than it is a story where you are an active participant and you're working your way through a narrative to a meaningful conclusion at the end. But you know, going slowly from the lands of the Shire or something like that into the broader world, and just making your way a little bit at a time through Middle Earth, and eventually facing the big evils in the world, and the contrast of starting off you know, delivering produce in the Shire, and then eventually going on to do things that are wild and epic later on. That's something that I think Lord of the Rings Online is unparalleled at. But anyway, the combat, it just feels meaningful. It doesn't feel amazing. It just works well. It works well. It makes sense, and it does exactly what you would expect of a tab target style of combat to do. But it feels grounded. Like there is no level scaling. It just you know, it just is what you expect it to be. So if the number says that's how much damage you're going to deal, then that's how much damage you're going to deal. And so tab target combat in Lord of the Rings Online, it's a refreshing change of pace from Elder Scrolls Online, and it does make progression feel a lot more meaningful than in ESO. Then Genshin Impact is interestingly the other game that I tend to play the most, just because I love the world design again, and a theme for me is world design comes first. So I'm a lot more interested in how is the world designed and how immersive does the world feel than I am necessarily in the combat elements of the game. But a good sense of fun combat, that's kind of a rare thing. And I do think in Genshin Impact, the action combat just feels really impactful. That sense of you know, your sword makes an impact. Your ultimate abilities really feel like you hit the button and you have a wow effect there. And I've really always loved the way Genshin Impact's combat system feels unique versus other games. And I know Genshin is not a MMO, but it is a game with combat that I really enjoy compared to MMOs and compared to other RPGs that I have played. It's simple but elegant. And so I kind of found that playing all three games, just because I love the world design, I love the sense of lore building in all three of them, and I also enjoy the combat in Genshin Impact and Lord of the Rings Online in a way that I could never enjoy Elder Scrolls Online. So it kind of scratches that itch that is just not satisfied by ESO. But ultimately, I play Lord of the Rings Online. I play Genshin Impact. You know, I play them because something about the world of Tamriel speaks to me. Something about the world of Middle Earth speaks to me. Something about Teyvat and Genshin Impact speaks to me. It just feels like it's a meaningful place. It's a place that I want to visit again and again. And there's so many games out there where they have amazing, beautiful worlds, like Black Desert Online, for example. I think it's a pretty beautiful game, and I think I could learn to love it. I'm not saying I never will. It's just when I think about maybe giving up the opportunity to go on an epic quest in Lord of the Rings Online, or to, you know, maybe one day be able to go explore Central Skyrim if they ever release that as a region in ESO, you know, like all those things, just the things that make you feel like a world and a game is a real place. versus just some contrivance for a game. That's what keeps me coming back. And it's those memories of something that made me feel inspired, something that brought a sense of joy into my life when I first experienced it. That feeling of adventure, of being excited to see what's next. And to a point, that does wear off. It wears off when something that's a new IP becomes something that you've seen before. But you always retain that memory of being amazed by a sense of place. And that, to me, is more important than combat mechanics ever could be. And it just boils down to, you know, if you only have so much time in your life to play games, if you're only going to finish a few things, then let those things be inspiring things. Let them be things that feel meaningful, that feel like they inspire you, both while you're adventuring in the game and also inspire you in real life as you take the memory of those adventures back with you out into the world. So I guess this video is kind of, you know, I'm just talking about like what game has the best combat, and I really think I have to say the level scaling in ESO makes that a game a hard pass if combat is your main interest, and I'm sure some will disagree with me, and that's fine. But in my opinion, ESO has the most gutless feeling combat of any MMO I've played, and I have played probably all of them to some degree. But Lord of the Rings Online, you'd think that it's an old game, but it actually, you know, it actually holds up surprisingly well. The graphics are surprisingly beautiful, and the sense of gear progression and skill abilities is something that feels pretty good, all things considered. You know, probably pretty similar to what you would have had in World of Warcraft, but Lord of the Rings is a stronger IP than World of Warcraft, and that's what sells it for me. Just that sense of being able to see places that I've seen in the movies or read about in the books, and that's a pretty amazing experience. And then, you know, Genshin Impact, it's not an MMO, but I like to talk about it just because it's a game that's important to me and I've enjoyed it. And it's a totally different kind of a game, but it's still one of those rare times that in life I experienced a game world that was new to me, and I felt like it transported me to a different place. And you know, that's such a rare thing to have that sense of wonder when you log into a game and you're excited to see what's around the next corner. So, you know, those are three RPGs, and I kind of usually I play each one of them at least a little bit every day. Here on the channel, I've been mostly just making videos while I play ESO, just because it seems to work well. But I was thinking, well, you know, maybe I will kind of branch out a little bit more and see if I can figure out how to make some of these other games I play work well as background content for videos while I'm talking about gaming or whatever happens to be on my mind at the time. You know, if anybody ever has any ideas of things to talk about, I'd always love to hear that too, because sometimes, believe it or not, it's hard to come up with good content of stuff to talk about. Nothing's really off limits, just anything that's interesting to muse on. Look at that, there's a potato. So with that, I'll leave you. As always, good luck on your adventure, and thanks for watching.